there, it's Drew, owner of MrExtractor.com. Now, if there's one question I get asked all the time, it is, why are your terpenes better than the next guy's? And I have an actual scientific explanation as to why our terpenes are better. And I'm going to give you the truth about it in this week's episode, Why Our Terpenes Are Better, from the Terpene Institute. So what makes the terpenes found at MrExtractor.com better than other companies? Well, if you ask anybody else, they're going to tell you, well, they smell better and they taste better and they're pure. It's all bullshit. That's all just things people say. You know, it's better, pure, cleaner, whatever. It doesn't mean anything, okay? I'm going to give you a scientific reason as to why our terpenes are better. I'm going to advise that you go to the TerpeneInstitute.com and watch a lot of the other videos we have that explain smell versus taste and how we create things to understand the scientific reason. Let me go ahead and break it down to you today as well. So first off, what I told people in the beginning of my business was that I took a lab analysis of the cannabis plant and we recreated the terpene profile. That lab analysis would give you a terpene profile and we would simply recreate it. That's not exactly what happened. Okay, so let me tell you the secret. When I first came out with this, there was a lot of resistance to terpenes. Believe it or not, the cannabis industry just had no idea. Nobody had done this before. Everybody kind of knew what terpenes were, but they didn't know really anything about them, truthfully. So they got freaked out and they're like, how does this work? You're using poison and this is synthetic and blah, 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 all the crap that goes on social media. So what I had to do is I had to explain what I did in a simple version that the cannabis industry could understand as a whole and accept. So what I did was I told them that I simply took the cannabis profile, got a lab analysis of it, and recreated that. That was something the cannabis industry could accept, but it's not what I actually did. It's not all of what I actually did. But since then, since the years that I've had that, we've had a bunch of other manufacturers that have watched my videos and they're like, hey, I can start a business of my own. They took a lab analysis of cannabis and they create their profiles. But what happened was they started running into problems that I knew about, but I didn't tell anybody the answer to. One of the major problems you'll see from a company that does that, they can only dilute their products 5 to 8%. That's a telltale sign, because anytime you do a laboratory analysis of a strain, it doesn't scale up. You can't just keep adding more and more terpenes. They get limited at a low amount of terpenes because when it's not handcrafted, it starts to hurt your throat at any higher dilution. So what they recommend is that you use 5 to 8% of their terpenes and then you add a bunch of fillers and MCT oil. My product was created specifically not to need anything that doesn't come from the cannabis plant. It's kind of a trap that I set for other companies and I've watched them all fall right into it. So step one, if you see another company say you can only dilute to 5 to 8%, they're doing it the amateur way. What I actually did was I started with the terpene profile as just a guide in the beginning to get a general understanding. Make sure to check out the other videos on why you can't use terpene profiles from laboratories to create terpene profiles. It doesn't work, they're not right. What I've done was I've handcrafted every single terpene profile by hand using skill as an artisan, and that's the truth. Here's the difference. If you take a laboratory analysis of a terpene profile, you can only use so much of it before it hurts your throat. Those terpenes taste like chemicals, they're very harsh. Every different terpene that you buy from every different manufacturer tastes different. Alpha pinene tastes different from every single different manufacturer you get unless you get it synthetic. We don't use synthetics, we use organics. That's like saying every orange in nature tastes different, because it does. So how would you make an exact replica of something using 30 different types of oranges from 30 different manufacturers and try to get it the same all the time? That's where the handcrafting comes in. Now, I handcrafted my profiles to do 3 main things. It was to taste exactly like the strain smells. There's a conversion between taste and smell. It was to make sure that we only used products found in the cannabis plant, and it was to make sure that you didn't need to use any artificial fillers. How did we accomplish that? If you take a terpene analysis, you can only dilute it at 5 to 8%. I handcraft each strain to taste right when it's diluted at whatever level you want, up to about 50%. Now, it's a high number, but it works that way. That means that if you take 5%, put it in your distillate, it's going to taste good. You take 25% and put it in your BHO, it's going to taste the same as if you put 40% and put it in your BHO. Other companies can't do that because they're not handcrafting it. I take every single strain that I make, I blend it together and I taste it in a pen, and then I alter every single terpene by hand hundreds of times until I create something good. Now, anybody can take a cake recipe and create a cake. It's hard to create something from nothing, and that's what we've done. We've made it to where you can use our terpenes to dilute your product and you don't need things like PG and PEG and MCT oil, something other companies can't say. Instead of just tasting like burnt cannabis, which is what some people say, I want it to taste like weed. Burnt cannabis doesn't taste good. What you want is it to smell. Now there's a big difference between taste and smell. Our products were meant to taste like the bud smells because people go and they smell their weed and it smells good. They want it to taste like that. So I've successfully crafted a conversion between the smell in the bottle of the cannabis and the taste in the pen. The other thing is we make sure that our product tastes good at 400 degrees. Now, other manufacturers will give you a bottle to smell in a store and they're like, smell this, it smells like cannabis. That's not perfume. We're not wearing perfumes. We're not trying to smell good at 80 degrees. We're trying to taste, which is different from smell, at 400, which is different from 80 degrees. Those are two completely different things. Every single product that we have has been handcrafted to taste perfect in the pen at the temperature that the pen operates. That's a big thing. Now listen, as a manufacturer, if you're interested in getting into this or you make 1 million pens, here's something you always have to remember. Your customer will never take your bottle of terpenes and smell it. They'll never see it. It's just an ingredient you use in manufacturing, but every single one of them is going to taste it in the pen. That's your true test. So when you go to a store and you smell a bottle and it smells great, it usually doesn't transfer over to a good taste. Now I'll tell you, I'll be the first to tell you, our bottles don't smell very good when you smell them because they're not crafted to smell good. They're crafted to taste good. How does that work? You have to craft it to know that it's being mixed with a THC substance and it's being used at a specific temperature, and that's how I do that. So if you go to a store and you're going to smell someone else's and you're going to smell ours, unless you're using it as cologne, it doesn't matter what it smells like. The true test is what it tastes like. Take another product, taste theirs, take our product, taste ours, and know that we've gone past a terpene analysis. Other companies use just a terpene analysis, and they're really proud of it. They say, look, we've done an exact replica of this strain. Doesn't work, straight up, I know. I'm a manufacturer. We take the terpene analysis. We then blend it with another substance, your distillate, and then we test it there because that's what you're going to do, right? You're going to have an end product blended with something that isn't in the bottle. How can you say it tastes right if you're going to go add other things to it? Then we're going to taste it at a certain temperature. That's another difference, okay? If you have a cannabis strain, there's chlorophyll, there's waxes, there's THC and CBDs and all sorts of things that are in there, terpenes, that when you make your product, all those are gone. It's just terpenes and distillate. We have made that transition correctly, and that is way different from just reading a terpene profile. I hope this isn't over your head. I'm sure you're gonna grasp some of this stuff. I urge you to just try our products because they're formulated for your end use. Hopefully you've learned some things today. That's why our terpene products are different, and I know you're gonna enjoy them. Join me over at MrExtractor.com if you're not already there. Get some free samples at freeterpenes.com and learn something from the Terpene Institute. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you soon.